Welcome back, listeners, to another enlightening episode of We Are Listening. I'm your host, Pulkit Garg, founder of Aanya Wellness. Today, we are diving into a topic that resonates with all of us, no matter where we are, who we are. And the topic for today is life, a learning voyage. We all have had various experiences in our lives that surely would have helped us to evolve and become a better version of ourselves. And listeners, why don't you share one with us in the comments today? And let's learn from each other's experiences. And in many ways, life itself is a school we all have experienced, and I'm sure that we all are going to be agreeing to it, which is filled with lessons that shapes us, challenges us, and helps us grow. And who better to guide us through the school of life than a special guest today, Ratika Bhandari. Ratika, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Pulkit. Thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure, Ratika. Thanks a lot, for accepting our invite and coming on the podcast. For our listeners, Ratika is a social scientist and mindset coach who blends the wisdom of her personal healing journey with scientific knowledge to empower her clients. Her core intention as a coach and healer is to remind people of their inherent strengths, often overshadowed by societal demands. She is dedicated to changing life's narrative from meeting external expectations to finding joy in the present moment.
Thank you,
So,
Pulkit.
Ritika, that's something we scripted while we got information from you. But let's hear in candid. Who is Ratika? What has been her life journey, and what made her a mindset coach and a social, doing the social experimentations, the social scientist.
Wow, what a loaded opening. So, yeah, I am Ratika, and in my community, I'm known as Bee. So, like a honey bee, I work with my community. And the way my life unfolded was with the kind of resources I was provided with the kind of things that I was exposed to. I did choose to graduate as a dentist first. And then
Okay.
on my journey, I very quickly realized that as a dentist, as I worked in the clinics, um, my patients would really open up to me about their emotions. And I was like, hey, and I never stopped them. I was just like, yeah, please tell me. I'm here, I'm listening. So I knew there was something going on very early as a very young, dentist who just started working out in the clinic setting. Of course, I was
Mhm.
not a bad dentist or anything. I was very gentle and very precise with my patients. But at the same time, there was this thing. I always had an ear to listen. Always had a ear to listen, even to my friends, since I was a little, child, a teenager. Once you start, developing those emotions, and you start to understand the social dynamics of friendships and class and peers and teachers and all of that. So it seems that yeah, I was kind of building myself up to come to this space where I am now, where I get to connect with so many people, where I get to also have so many people's trust in me that they choose to work with me. So it's quite a brilliant space to be at. So yeah, like I said, very quickly I realized that maybe dental or the clinical field is a bit limited for me. So I wanted to
Mhm.
expand. So the next step for me was to study public health research, to sort of get out of the clinic setting. And again, it also opened up a world of things for me because when I started to study public health, I realized everything under the sun is public health. So where you're living, the way the way our roads are, the kind of greenery we have around our house, what we are watching, what people are talking about in the media, everything kind of comes down to the public well-being. So it was a really interesting journey, and I had an amazing fleet of professors who continuously inspired me in terms of there was a lot of chronic disease awareness that I developed. There was a lot of mental health awareness that I developed as I studied in my master's course,
Hmm.
and very passionate teachers too I've had, very inspiring lot. So yeah, so that was the next step for me. And again, I was, on this path, exploring, trying to build a career as I was taught to build a career. So I started out as a researcher after my master's in public health. And I worked for over a year in a mental health research firm. And this is, of course, you know, besides what I learned in the college setting, in the work setting, I was
Hmm.
already also discovering my own personal journey, my own emotional journey, trying to understand myself parallelly as I'm building myself, my career as a researcher. Um, so, if I talk about my own emotional journey, I think as a teenager, I started to get into studying what is mental health, what is depression, what is anxiety, why do I feel like this, how can I do better, things like that. Especially for some reason, well, I've struggled with depression and anxiety, and so that really pushed me to look for answers. It was like here I am, and there's like walls around me of depression and anxiety, and I really tried to get out of that space that kind of felt like, yeah, that really felt limiting. It felt like it wasn't me. I wasn't completely expressing myself. I didn't even know what it is to express myself. So slowly I educated myself for my own well-being, started to pick up on certain activities that I could do to regulate myself, a whole lot of things. I also enrolled myself into therapy eventually, which really helped me, which is a huge part of my success, you know. So yeah, so that was, yeah, parallelly also coming together. So yeah, this is where interestingly with research, my personal journey comes together with my profession is when I'm working in mental health research, and I'm
Hmm.
also, beautifully also discovering who I am, how to regulate my mind, body, spirit system. And yet it felt kind of, I just felt that there's something more needed. I need to do more. Research, fine, it's a great tool. Scientific evidence is a great tool. I want to continue working on this, but I want to do more. And as it is, I was like on the phone with my friends for hours, kind of helping them get through life. So it only made sense to really channelize this into a structural manner and start taking up clients where I have a defined calendar. Now I'm not really burning myself out. I am able to manage my time better. So it was all a research and development for me. And I think when we spoke earlier, I kind of mentioned how it is all about learning and adapting and then moving forward, about
Yeah.
observing
Yeah.
what is in your playing field, picking things up. And so it's just been like that.
No, Ratika, thanks a lot for sharing this journey, and I can, to a certain extent, relate with what you just mentioned about evolving from being a teenager, fighting those shackles of depression and anxiety at that age, because a lot of hormonal changes are also happening in an individual's body at that time. So, along with combating those changes which we don't understand as a kid, suddenly we are a 12-year-old kid, and overnight we are just 13, we are entering the teenage, and the life changes for us. Our mind changes, our family members, their response and their way of expressing love also changes towards us.
Yeah,
So the whole world is already going turtle for us, and then there's a pressure of performing in education, in our studies, in school coming first, choosing a career option. 17, 18, the later part of the teens, you have to take a decision of, what you want to do for the next 50 or 60 years of your life out there. So there's so much happening out there. I myself had, my own fight with depression when I was in my 11th and 12th class. So yeah, I evolved from it. And again, that's the reason mental health is a very close topic to my heart, which I want to spread awareness about. We are privileged enough where our families understood this, or they had at least, people in their circle who guided them that this could be the case. So please accordingly go and consult a therapist or a psychologist out there to get a better treatment or the right treatment out there for your children. But majority part of the globe out there, I would not just say India, but the globe out there is not ready to accept that part, that mental health exists. It's a challenge that needs to be catered to. And it's equally important as a physical illness or ailment might be. So, what role does family plays? Because we have had speakers in the past who have shared instances about the role of family. But yes, I would love to hear from you. What do you feel is the role of family in enabling or empowering a teenage at that time?
I do think that as a young person, I think I have been the enabler in the family in terms of encouraging people to get therapy. Fortunately or unfortunately, whatever you want to label it as, nobody told my parents or gave them guidance to. Yeah, I don't think they knew what was going on, and that is what happens with lack of awareness. It is not that it is their fault, but it is the lack of awareness within the system that they didn't know any better how to
Mhm.
help the child. But what can I say for families is just be present with the person that is struggling, whoever it is, be it an elder, be it a child, and anybody can struggle with it. And you don't know whether just I would say also have faith, trust the person. If they're telling that they are in pain, even if they are out partying, hanging out with friends, and if they tell you that they are feeling lonely, trust that. Trust the words of your loved ones. That's it. And that is the first step. And then, step by step, there are so many resources now we have. And, this is also why I say fortunately or unfortunately, because the way COVID came in, it destroyed so many lives. But at the same time, the whole world underwent an awakening of mental well being.
Yep.
So, definitely, this is a different world now. It has changed the way people talk about mental health. And I'm sure that if something like COVID would have happened, the way the awareness came in, I would have had better resources back then. But it unfolded the way it unfolded, and I am so glad and I celebrate myself every day on not giving up on myself and questioning why it is that I get to be miserable and how can I make it possible to shift this into joy. Somewhere in my bones I knew this is not the way, this is not it has to be better. So there was that adamant attitude around that, but at the same time everybody might not have access to that. So as loved ones, as friends, as family, it is our you know responsibility to just be aware, be present, and be trusting of our loved one when they tell about themselves, their feelings, because feelings are very, it's a spectrum.
Yep.
You cannot put it in a box कि ये पांच छह चीजें करता है तो ये सुखी है. It's not like that. और या
Yeah.
ये पांच छह चीजें नहीं कर रहा है तो डिप्रेस्ड है. It's not like that. It's very much like a spectrum. Just, yeah, be there, trust.
Agreed. Agreed. Ritika, this brings me to my next question, and again, coming from my own life experiences out there, like our generation, for most of the people in my friend circle, and to an extent where our family, our parents, were also evolving from their roots. They came from their villages, settled in urban cities, and they evolved to a certain level. So when we were in our teenage, for them also life was a struggle. They were figuring out how to give that aspirational life they always wanted to their children. And so I'm coming from a point where you said that we need to trust the word of our loved ones. The word would come at a point where the time is also there. We are able to sit together, have those discussions. Because one of the things I feel, one of the negative aspects of urbanization is the loss, I would say the place where a lot of nuclearity has come into the family structures. Earlier, it used to be bigger families, joint families. So if the parents are out, we had our grandparents or uncles and aunties to look after us or to talk to. We had our cousins to talk to. But now it's just that often it's only a single child or at max two siblings together, and there's nobody to guide them because if there are two siblings, in most of the cases they're gonna both be going through the teenage at the same time or with 2 or 3 years apart. Now, if there's no time available and your friend circle is also again going through the same age, how do you really go through that? I would say I was a privileged one that I was safeguarded by some supreme power that they always showed me the right direction and right way. But then there are scenarios and instances where I have seen that not everybody gets onto the right way. They have to go through those life experiences, those hurdles and those struggles, and then they evolve. So,
Hmm.
what are your thoughts on this?
It's a spectrum, is what I'm thinking. It's not black
Mhm.
or white. It's like from our grandparents' generation to our parents' generation to our offspring's generation. The world is constantly evolving. So where the mind gets anxious, the families are becoming more separated. There is also this talk that we are having, which is going out in public. So we have
Yeah.
more access to things like this, right? So there will be tons of more, videos or courses or conversations on Instagram, Facebook, communities online that are coming together for well-being purposes.
Mhm. Mhm.
So that balance, I feel like nature has its way of balancing itself, and that is what I choose to also, it's like I choose to believe it, so I happen to see that more. That makes sense. Yeah, like I am now collaborating with musicians who are calling me on board to. So these musicians are teaching children and adolescents, right? So my role, I'm invited to play a role where I open them up to the world of vibrations, to the world of, hey, how does it feel? How does it make you feel? So music and emotion is coming together. So there are these spaces that are being cultivated. We might not have thought about it when, I mean, there was nothing like it when I was a teenager. I am a musician, so I used to go to music classes and all. Things are very different. Now there are people like, that I have in my community who are stirring things up and building on such things. And so, yeah, like when we develop a space like that, we invite parents there. So parents are also being open to, oh, emotional awareness. What is that? How
Mhm.
do I communicate with my child and stuff?
Yeah,
It's a
yeah.
whole paradigm shift, you know.
What would be your thoughts on having emotional well-being or expressions as a subject in our schools or education system? What are your thoughts on that?
It should be a mandate, first off. Yeah, it should be the core of any, educational system. That is my thought. And it is also my journey, is what I
Mhm.
see unfolding. Like now, I just shared that I'm working with kids and adolescents. So, yeah, I'm on this ship that is, taking all of these people, families, little kids, and the kind of impact. Like, imagine you and I, we kind of had these challenges that we had to navigate mostly ourselves.
Yeah.
And then now we are establishing these communities where people are coming together for wellness and, mental health and self expression and all that. And now having to be a part of this big evolutionary movement, which is like, giving access to these kids at such a young age. Just think about the kind of society we would have like in another 10, 15 years when these kids become adults. I'm very excited to be alive in this time.
Totally, totally. That would be a good place to, experience, and even I can't wait to see, because the way emotional healing or well-being has, received acceptance post-COVID, as you rightly mentioned, a lot of changes are happening. So again, the name of the podcast we are listening was derived from anonymous, initiative that we took around enabling mental health with a stigma where people build prejudices. So often it happens when you go out and share with your friends, as close as they might be to you, they build a perception about you when you talk about your darkest fears or feelings that you might be facing. I'm not saying all exceptions are there, but yes, mostly that's the scenario. So, in order to fight that stigma, we started this initiative called We Are Listening, where people can come and vent out anonymously.
Mm,
And some of the things that were shared often, shake your soul.
yeah.
You are like, okay, people have to go through this. Why are we even, alive on this earth? And then the next response at the same time is simultaneous response. How can we help? But again, the point is they wanted to vent out anonymously. You cannot reach out to them. You cannot do anything out there, just sending out prayers and more power to them. So I believe benefit of doubt is something that we should be giving it as a common by default, to anyone and everyone we are talking out there in the environment or in our surroundings. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like as you were speaking, I was reminded of this thing that we keep forgetting, that we are indeed nature. So if you think about it, human beings are not a part of nature, they are nature. And what human beings do is also nature. So our ego, oh, I'm a human being, I'm on the top of the pyramid and I own land and I cultivate these crops and sell and there's a market. So we are owning the planet. It's not like that. It is all nature. What is important here to realize is that there are extremes. There are extremes in the sense very painful and dark realities that exist right now. At the same time, there is a lot of compassion. And why I brought nature here is because we need to have trust in nature and have this spaciousness in our minds that both the extremes are very much existing, the extreme compassion, people wanting to serve, people wanting to show up and care for each other. At the same time, there's violence, there is really very much atrocious things that are even unspeakable, you know and there's everything in the middle. So that's nature, right? We are limited beings in this body, playing our part. And yeah, the person who is being atrocious and the person being extremely compassionate are really just nature unfolding. It's like even bizarre. Like, some people are like, what about Hitler? What would you say about? I mean, it's really controversial even. But at the end, it is nature. Hitler happened because of Hitler. A lot of things surfaced because of the contrast that even now the contrast that's going on with the wars. We know what we really really want, right? Because there is this pain going on. We know that we want peace. We know
Yes.
that we want love. We know that we want to root for love. So it's all there. It's always there. Just we gotta trust nature. If we cannot trust atrocious crimes, whatever's happening, just let go and try to trust nature. Nature will find its way, and we are not bigger than nature. We are just nature.